Welcome to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Jones. I am a certified personal trainer, and I'm here to help you achieve your fitness goals without pain. In each episode, I'll share tips and strategies that will help you stay safe and pain-free while you're working out. I'll also interview experts in the field of fitness and pain management. So if you're ready to learn how to stay active and pain-free, then subscribe to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast today. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Pain-Free Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Dana Jones, and today we have a special guest. I'm so excited to be here with Allison Ray Benavides. She's a licensed clinical social worker, a therapist, and a chronic pain management coach. She helps people turn down pain, symptoms, and overwhelm so they can turn up their lives. She brings this unique blend of clinical expertise, compassion, and mind-body support to her work, including a special focus on high-achieving men in pain. If you've been dealing with chronic pain, mystery symptoms, or feel like your body just won't cooperate no matter what you try, this episode is for you. Welcome to the show, Allison.
Dana, thanks for having me.
I'm so glad you're here because, I've been stalking you for a while. So it's good to have you come and allow me to question you and let people hear all the good stuff that you're doing out in the field.
Thanks. Yeah, it's good to be here.
So tell me, talk about a little bit about your journey and what led you to the work, specifically with working with chronic pain and the mind-body connection stuff.
Yeah, so I'm a licensed clinical social worker. My passion has always been hospice care, and that's a niche in medicine that's really specific to the expertise of a social worker. So I was really in my niche and really just loving what I was doing, and then the pandemic came. So I worked during the pandemic in hospice care in California. Dana, as you know, were you in the state at that time?
Yes.
Yeah, it was very restricted. The kids were out of school. Everything was very shut down, and I very much felt in the belly of the beast. I'm here. I'm on site with folks every day who are dying from a disease that I'm terrified of bringing home to my kids, and my kids are home. So I have a child with some special needs. So all that to say, by 2021, I was ready to just look for some more support. So I went to San Antonio. That's where my children's father is from. And I wasn't able to do hospice care there. So all that to say, I moved and got all this great family support, but I had to open a private practice. And so I really wanted to still use my medical stuff because I really like that part of what I do. And so I found this cool company that was helping people taper down off their opioids and reprocess their pain. So I'm working with this company and I'm getting some, these chronic pain referrals. And to be honest, I'm kind of winging it. Like I know what I'm doing, but I wasn't like really that confident, not confident enough to take on this caseload that I'm given, which is this entire group of folks who have amputations and they've been getting their pain medication, their opioids from their doctor who's moving out of state. And so this doctor is like best friends from college with our head sales guy. And they give me her, all of her caseload. And they're like, hey, can you help this doctor's patients? And I accepted the challenge knowing that I didn't feel that confident with my skills, but I was like, okay, let's learn what I need to. So all this to say, I took Alan Gordon's pain reprocessing class, his training. I noticed that he was a social worker. And that attracted me, right? Because that's my licensure. So I brought the information to this client group and was just like, hey, let's be curious together. And I mean, it worked. So I had these guys, who were working on railroads and for the electric company, that had lost one, sometimes two limbs with handlebar mustaches in Texas, doing somatic scanning with me. And I mean, it worked. So from that moment, I was just hooked. It was just beautiful, honestly, to get to watch people recover their everything, right? Just getting their bodies back, getting their lives back, not being afraid anymore. So I've been doing it ever since.
That's awesome. I love that it turned into that kind of situation. I feel that when people know that you're on the journey with them, it makes it a lot easier as opposed to you're the resident expert and I have to default to whatever you want to do. And I'm not 100% sure this is going to work. But if we're all in it together, then it just feels like, okay, I can do this with a team or a group or whatever it may be.
It's very collaborative, which is what I like about it. which is what I think is good about having a coach or a therapist, because it's kind of a slippery, tricky methodology, this pain reprocessing that we do. And I think it's really easy to read it, misapply it, like think you're right, that you've applied it correctly, but it's kind of got this slippery opposite effect. So, anyways, all that to say, yeah, I love when I get to participate when people reach out to me and they already have some information. Maybe they've read the book already. Maybe they follow some of these folks on Instagram. But yeah, just being able to help folks tailor the information to their life and to their situation is just really fun for me. I get to go to work and see people's lives get better. I think as a social worker, that sometimes isn't something you always get, you know? So,
Right. So why men? Like, I know, I guess maybe women don't get injured as much, so you start edging over toward men? Because it seems, I mean, when you look at the statistics, women seem to suffer more from chronic pain conditions than men do. But I don't know
that's
if
true.
there's been a lot of discussion about men.
I don't feel like there is, and to be clear, I mean, I do work with both genders, but I do like to market specifically to men, because my observation is that men just aren't talking about it maybe as much. I'm very familiar with the statistics, and women do have significantly more symptoms than men. But it's phenomenal how many men will come in maybe for something else. And then I'll ask them, "Oh, do you have any chronic physical symptoms?" And they'll say no. But then in the course of working with them, to come to find out, like, their back goes out twice a month. But when I ask them point blank, they're like, "No, I'm good. I'm good." So I don't know how to control for like minimizing, but I know that that is a thing that we do to, kind of deflect attention, or, so I just have noticed that when a man reaches out for support, they tend to be this is my observation, just in the work that I do, they just tend to be very like willing to do it. I think they've been like so just beaten down by symptoms and whatever they've been doing to cope that hasn't been working. And so by the time I catch them, I also that's another reason why I like marketing to men, is because it's so satisfying to be like, "Hey, here's a thing, let's be curious together." And then it works because they do it. They listen to me.
I Well, and I feel like men have that kind of push through mentality
Mhm.
because they're not allowed to be vulnerable, or they're not allowed to stop for anything. And that relates, for those of you listening, it relates to athletes a lot because we're
Mhm.
taught that at a very young age, right? Rub some dirt on it, don't worry about it, right? And men have, I feel like they have this persona that they have to live up to, and they're not allowed to appear as if they have any issues. Not necessarily that you have issues, but even acknowledging something that may be off. And so for someone who's that strong, how would you work with them in terms of, I mean, you said most people come to you or pretty much know what you're doing, so it's a comfortable cycle for them to kinda go through. But if somebody's a little reluctant, say an athlete who's like, "No, my knee pain only occurs when this happens, but no, it's not that." Is that someone for you, or you just or will you work with them to kinda adjust their thinking?
I definitely work with folks. I would say that most of my clients are still in some way plugged into the medical system. And
Mhm.
I think that that is something that I do bring to the table that might be a little different than some of the other clinicians that I work with, because I do have that medical social working background. We just know that chronic symptoms, really just the human experience in general, has like these four domains, which we call the biopsychosocial, right? So we've got this biological, the mental, emotional, and the relational. So even though I'm not a doctor, right, that's really like that biological domain. There's a lot that still, I think, being a master of the other three domains, I still feel like it's not, we have to be careful in recognizing that all four have their place, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I would never tell my clients not to go to the doctor. I worked in hospice care for 8 years. I know, in fact, what very specifically does tend to happen to men who don't go to the doctor. So I think it's important to have, some attention there. So, if they've got, if they're working with someone and they've got that figured out, that's great for me. I just feel like I'm here to just show how that works with these other 3 domains, and then what happens when we get some interventions layered in our relationship to money, or in our relationship to our spouse, or in, our relationship to the medical system in general, right? We talk about how sometimes it's not so much even like what you're doing, but just like how you're doing it, how, right? Just that like more of the subtle energy. So, yeah, I try to just meet them where they're at while also educating about these other things that are worthwhile to be open to, because we're not making it up. I mean, there's evidence. So I also just try to, keep that curiosity going, because something got you curious enough to come in.
Right.
So let's just keep that door open. Yeah.
Well, and it's a shift because for those of us that are in their 40s and 50s, we were kind of told as kids that if you're sick, you go to the doctor, and the doctor is the end all be all. And so whatever happens, whatever they say is what we have to follow. But we didn't necessarily think that you could have a team,
Yeah.
right? And not just have a doctor, but also have a therapist or some other practitioner that's going to support your mental health, because we would never acknowledge that anything was wrong with us before we did anything, or whatever, that I would hurt every time I played a game or whatever it was. I wouldn't acknowledge that there was any other type of pattern. I just needed to go to the doctor or the chiropractor or whatever, and I need you to fix this because it needs to go away. And so the stuffing becomes a pattern of
Mhm.
safety, because I just want to feel safe, and I just want to know when I wake up in the morning that my head isn't going to hurt, or my shoulder's not going to hurt, or my back or my knee, or whatever your thing may be.
Yeah, so much there. I think that we really do. We want to believe in the medical model, understandably. Like, we want to just go and have them give me a thing that will fix this, right? It's like a pill or a surgery. And I feel like that is really where medicine shines, right? Where doctors and right, they're super good at diagnosing, like getting like what's going on, and they're super good at like fixing, but not like regulating. Not so good at. I think that's another area that has kind of just become one of my niches, is helping people who have like this vicarious like collateral trauma from the medical system itself. Just having to manage your own plan of care by the time you're my client. My clients have multiple things going on often, right? As you know, it's very common to have migraines with the IBS, with the chronic pelvic pain. Maybe you've already had multiple back surgeries. Maybe you already have a spinal cord stimulator. So I think it's disappointing that we aren't more working as a team, right? That there isn't more of a place to say, like, we've done the assessing and the because we know, right? Like, if it's healed and there's still symptoms, it comes to us, and it's no competition. Like, let's maybe just add some of this maybe before the surgeries, or so, I really appreciate the mission of the Association for the Treatment of Neuroplastic Symptoms, which is really just to continue to get this message out, that it's like, it's not going to hurt to look at these other domains. It will most definitely dial it back. And if it can dial it down to 0, then it's not uncommon to hear of surgeries that have been avoided and all kinds of stuff. So, yeah, I'm still working on
Yeah.
the complimentary bridges. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, there's things that make somebody like me probably a good client for you. And it would be somebody who is that seeking behavior,
Yeah.
that desperately, like, I'm always trying to find. And it was funny because it was in all aspects of my life, right? I couldn't just buy a pen. It had to be the best pen. And I had to research the pen for like 25 minutes and look at every site and listen to everybody talk about, well, the ink is, perfect this way and whatever. And that's how, because it started to become a part of my DNA, because I just wanted to feel better. And so it was always, if somebody said, hey, have you, tried this vitamin? And I was like, damn it, so I wanted to try the vitamin or whatever it is. And to just sit with something was probably the most uncomfortable thing that I ever had to learn, was just saying, oh, there's a pain in my knee. I'm just going to sit with it and decide because the pain wasn't there 5 minutes ago. I didn't do anything, whatever. So why is there a pain in my knee? Well, because I don't want to go for a walk with so and so or whatever, that kind of thing. It's like, well, maybe I should just cancel that walk now. Instead of going, I need a knee brace. Maybe if I take some ibuprofen, maybe, when it's so topical, I heard topical stuff is better. Maybe I should try the CBD topical, right? Because it's always that like anxiousness and feeling. And again, for people who don't know what we're talking about, there's a difference between having something hurt. Like I tore something, so I need to have surgery and have it repaired. Okay, that's fine. But if you had it repaired and it's totally repaired and it's still hurting 3 years later, then you probably need to have a conversation with Allison or somebody like her, right? And that's the difference, is that there is that anxiousness, there's that fear of that pain that really generates needing that support.
Yeah, that's a huge point that you're bringing up. And actually, like one of my favorite things to like what do you say? Like I love to like hate, I love to hate that symptom, like restlessness. And again, it's an example of the slipperiness of the model, because we talk, so that trait is hypervigilance, right? This like I need to seek and look and make sure, right? It's the scanning, like who's out there who can fix this. And we know that all of those kinds of thoughts, it's a kind of pain thoughts, right? And notice it's generated by this sort of like pushing internal, right? There's kind of like this frantic, like, a sense of urgency, right? So that sense of urgency that comes with restlessness, it's a symptom and it has a function, which is to find people like me, right? And they know that people who have more hypervigilance are healthier, right? So it's tricky because there's like this degree to which hypervigilance does what it's supposed to. But when we notice, right, we're still doing that. I have the people on my team, right? And it's enough, but there's this like extra, there's like this more, right? That's when we'd say it's no longer adaptive or appropriate. It's now like in the realm of symptomatic. And
Mhm.
if there is one symptom that is so uncomfortable that will undoubtedly show up in our personality, it's this restlessness, right? It's this like, I need to do something about this. It can show up as perfectionism. It can show up as people pleasing. It can show up as just like not being able to, like being rigid or holding on to something. So, yeah, that's where it gets really juicy when you start looking at the way, right? Like what would irritable bowel syndrome have to do with my hypervigilance? But it has like everything, right? Because we just know that once the fear gets kicked up, it's going to start, right? It just keeps our consciousness in the back of our brain. And then that's where we start talking from. So yeah, it gets like super juicy, super fast.
Bet. So if somebody comes in like that, what is a practical tool that you would start people off with?
Well, I would say that the first practical tool for any process is going to be noticing. So that's where I really just start with everyone, is just noticing where we're starting. Noticing, I like to say, what are we noticing when we're noticing that we're noticing, right? So noticing the body, noticing our thoughts, noticing that we're not noticing any of this anymore, and then noticing like how well, am I being hard on myself? Am I not even caring? Like we just sort of like continuing to just sort of notice what we notice. Because if we can't really like start, we don't know where to start then otherwise. And like I said, it's some like the pushing through is a great example. Like for my folks that have oh gosh, like migraines, like don't push through. Like we're not pushing through with a migraine, right? But for my chronic fatiguers, which is like, I mean, that's where I come into this. I have chronic fatigue. Like, yeah, I've had to learn how to push through. Pushing through has been really important, but that doesn't mean, right? So it's helping. So I like to really just help people kind of like know how to kind of apply it to yourself.
Yeah. Well, because as like I said, as an athlete, I was very much into the pushing through, and I obviously had migraines, and so that was really important, right, for me. It's like, I
Yeah.
know my head feels like it's going to explode, but we're gonna play these 5 games today or whatever it was, and it was
Yeah.
just it was a nightmare. So What is a good way for somebody to get in touch with you, work with you?
Yeah, I can be found on social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook, LinkedIn. I have my own website. My name is Allison Ray Benavides. My Instagram is Simple Pain Relief. And yeah, so I offer one on one counseling sessions. So if you're in the states of California or Texas, I can more than likely bill your insurance. But if you're in a state outside of that, I can work with you as a coach. This is a really great model because for coaching, because it is really educational by nature and then really like applicable for what's happening now. And then, it's very easy to refer folks out if they need more support than that. So I really just try to make myself available, for folks. I try to find a way to be supportive because I believe in it. I see it work, So thank you. I know you do it as well. So I appreciate you having me on your show.
Oh, I love it. I love that you're doing the work, and I love that you're getting people that may fall through the cracks because a lot of times they may not have the money or they may not have the support, and you're doing good work. And I want to make sure that everybody knows who you are so that we can keep you going, and we won't have to have these discussions maybe in the future because you'd be part of a team already assigned to somebody. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.